a punch thrown, and moments later, a deafening gunshot shattered the silence. Before we begin, we would like to express our sincere condolences to the victims' friends and family. We don't know much about the backgrounds, but it's safe to say that Jason Clearman and Theodore Edgecombe
My
came
man
from
looked
different
like
sides of the tracks.
my man
Mr.
looked
Clearman was a
crazy with that
veteran
hair.
and
What
a
the fuck?
respected immigration attorney with a thriving business, a beautiful family, and a comfortable home in Milwaukee's historic and working-class Walker Square neighborhood. According to friends, colleagues, and family members, he worked tirelessly to help immigrants from all over the world become full-fledged U.S. citizens. He was also passionate about doing whatever he could to make the neighborhood a great place to live and work. A few years after moving to Walker Square, he founded a farmers market to give locals access to reasonably priced produce. The market eventually went belly up, but the setback didn't damper Mr. Clearman's community spirit. By the fall of 2020, he and his family lived the kinds of lives that many residents of Milwaukee, both white and black, could only dream of. It's unclear where Theodore Edgecombe was born, but he spent much of his adult life in Milwaukee as well. By all accounts, he came from a good family, had a solid work ethic, and was a good father to 5 kids. Even so, Mr. Edgecombe had more than a few run-ins with the law over the years. In mid-December of 2019, he was charged with a number of crimes, including felony battery. But despite the severity of the charges, he was eventually released on bond on condition that he didn't possess any firearms or commit any other crimes. Nonetheless, he was charged with various misdemeanors, including domestic violence and carrying a concealed weapon in early March of the following year. It's worth pointing out that in 2020, racial tensions in Milwaukee and other large cities were higher than they had been in decades. We'll never know if the weapon was for self-defense or for some nefarious purpose. Either way, it clearly violated the terms of his release for the 2019 charges. But remarkably, he was released once again after coming up with just $250 for bail. 32-year-old Theodore Edgecombe and his oldest daughter were looking forward to eating sushi and spending a few hours together on the night of Tuesday, September the 22nd of 2020. According to Theodore, it was one of their regular daddy-daughter date nights. Earlier that evening, he had ordered the sushi from one of their favorite restaurants on the east side. Then, sometime before 7 p.m., he hopped onto his trusty bicycle and drove off into the night to pick it up. But since the food wasn't ready when he got there, he decided to drive to another nearby business to buy frozen yogurt for dessert. However, he turned back a minute or two later because he didn't want the yogurt to melt, and he realized he wouldn't be able to carry all the food by himself. Meanwhile, 54-year-old Jason Clearman and his wife Evangelina were in their Kia SUV driving westbound on Brady Street after spending a few hours with friends at a popular downtown bar. Evangelina was driving largely because her husband had consumed a fair share of...
Ugh. Hey, bud. Your backs. Go. Go.
Yo, what's up, Squirt?
Give me a sec, bud.
What's up? Just chilling, Squirt. Just chilling. What you been saying, my dude? How you been? Staying out of trouble, I hope.
Of alcohol at happy hour, and since it was an unseasonably pleasant evening, they both had their windows down to let in some fresh air. Now things get a little hazy at this point, because, as is often the case, there were two distinct versions of events. According to Evangelina Clearman, Theodore Edgecombe drove his bike into the travel lane so unexpectedly she had to swerve into the other lane to avoid hitting him. She also claimed that her husband stuck his head out the window and yelled, "What the heck?" in Mr. Edgecombe's direction. Later, Mr. Edgecombe claimed that she was the one driving erratically and that she hit him and knocked him off his bike and into a parked car. Worse yet, he said that Jason Clearman called him the N-word and told him to get off the road in a boisterous and condescending manner.
See, I can't even see that happening because that guy literally works with immigrants all the time.
Either way, Jason Clearman and Theodore Edgecombe were both angry when Evangelina brought the car to a stop at a red light a few minutes later. Then, Mr. Edgecombe pulled along the passenger's side and asked Jason Clearman if he was talking to him. When he answered yes, Mr. Edgecombe punched him in the face with such force that Jason Clearman's glasses flew off and drops of blood spattered on the passenger side door. We'll never know whether Jason Clearman was thinking clearly or if his mind was clouded by alcohol at that moment. Whatever the case, Mr. Edgecombe continued westbound on Brady Street, and Jason Clearman told his wife that he wanted to talk to the man who had just punched him. Then he got out of the Kia and began heading in the same direction as the cyclist. Evangelina didn't think her husband was looking for a fight or even an argument, but she followed close behind because she was worried that things might get out of hand. Then, just as the two men were within arm's reach, she noticed the horror that the cyclist was holding a gun. Evangelina yelled at Jason to warn him that he was in imminent danger, but it did not appear as though he heard her. This isn't particularly surprising because his back was turned to her and the Kia was running at the time, and they were about 20 feet or 6 meters away from each other. Looking into the cyclist's eyes at that moment, she realized with absolute clarity that her husband was about to get shot at point-blank range, and a fraction of a second later, that is exactly what happened. The assailant fled immediately after the shot was fired. Then, when she was sure he was gone, Evangelina Clearman went to her husband's body, knelt down, and placed her hand on his back to see if he was still breathing. When she determined that he wasn't, she removed the wallet from his back pocket. Officers arrived at the 1700 block of North Holton Street a few minutes later.
Why?
When they got there, Evangelina was in shock, and Jason was lying face down in a pool of blood at the top of a
She's not even giving him, like,
leading
CPR
down
or
to
anything?
Water Street.
That doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't... What's up? Just waiting to start work, my man. Just waiting to start work. Waiting to start work. How about yourself? You no longer that one employed friend on Saturday? Nice. What you doing for work, my man? Excuse me.
He was pronounced dead at the scene shortly thereafter. Shortly after arriving at the scene, Milwaukee PD Detective Alex Calvond found a single 9mm shell casing near the body and a pocket knife with a retractable blade in the victim's coat pocket. When he checked the Clearman's Kia, he noticed that the front windows were rolled down and that the passenger side was splattered with blood. This seemed to confirm that the cyclist punched Jason Clearman through the open window. Later that night, the Milwaukee police sent out a tweet identifying the missing cyclist as the Brady Street killer. During the autopsy,
the cashier and
Milwaukee
stocking,
County
nice.
Medical examiner Dr. Jacob Smith
I'm working in a plastic factory, just sorting plastic bullshit. Pretty fucking boring, honestly. Just like mind numbing. You know who made the 40-hour work week? His name's what was his name? Doug not Doug Ford. Henry Ford. Henry Ford. This cocksucker right here, Henry Ford, is the fucking douchebag we can fucking thank for the 40-hour work week. Fucking loser.
A 9mm slug from Jason Clearman's head. In addition to the gunshot wound over the victim's left eye, his right eye was black and blue. Mr. Clearman also had scratches and abrasions on the left side of his face and on his left arm and hand, all of which were consistent with a punch and a fall to the ground after the shooting. Unsurprisingly, the death was ruled a homicide. Later, blood tests revealed that Mr. Clearman had trace amounts of THC in his system and a relatively high blood alcohol level at the time of his death. Meanwhile, investigators were trying to identify the mysterious cyclist. Luckily, much of the altercation would be captured by police surveillance cameras. This was a godsend because
it's Monster. What's up, buddy?
Things played out that night. Investigators also found nearly 12 minutes of footage that showed where the killer went immediately after the shooting. After carrying his bicycle down the stairs, he turned west on Water Street.
How you doing, buddy?
Moments later, at the corner of Water and Humboldt Streets, he pulled his shirt over a bulge near his waist that was consistent with a handgun. Next, he continued down Water Street before entering a trail at Caesar Park before heading west on Locust Street. Investigators caught another break when they showed images of the perpetrator's bike to Milwaukee.
I'm doing alright. No complaints here. Just waiting to start work and shit, you know?
As a GMC Denali bicycle. This ultimately led to the shooter's identification because a number of Theodore Edgecombe's acquaintances and family members came forward after seeing
Realm of the Mad God. No, I'll check it out right now, though. Realm of the Mad God. Ooh, kind of looks like Stardew Valley. Kind of looks like Stardew Valley. And like RuneScape.
On local news broadcasts. They also confirmed that Mr. Edgecombe lived on North Dousman Street, just a stone's throw away from where he was last seen.
It looks alright.
Investigators felt relatively certain that he headed straight home after the shooting, and Detective Michael Tannum found a green and black GMC Denali bicycle in the basement while executing a search warrant at the man's home on September 28, 2020. And perhaps more tellingly, they also found a black Ruger SR9 9mm handgun with 10 unfired cartridges in the magazine.
Gotta go see ya. Yo, it's great. You stayed out of trouble, buddy. Appreciate you for chilling, man.
Nobody had seen Mr. Edgecombe since the day of the shooting. As far as investigators know, he could be.
One thing that low-key pisses me off is when old people be like, "You're just lazy and you're not working hard enough." Like, shut the fuck up. House didn't cost $1,000 to buy nowadays. Yeah, I know, it's retarded, bro. The world's rotten. The world we live in is just rotten. I'll be back tonight, Squared. I probably won't even be streaming tonight. I won't get home until like quarter after 11, 11:30. And then I'll have to make a dinner, and then by the time I'm done making dinner, I'm gonna have to shower, and I'll probably just be ready for bed. But, yo, I appreciate you for chilling as always, man. You're a fucking legend around here. Hope you've been enjoying Oblivion, my guy. Hope you've been really enjoying Oblivion. Game looks fun. I was thinking about buying it for myself, but it's just like, yeah. Yeah, don't tell me I'm not working hard enough. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, brother. Trust me, it's fucking ridiculous. Like, we were born in like the worst time to be alive. It's pretty sad. Pretty fucking sad. Pretty fucking
County,
sad.
Kentucky, approximately 430 miles or 690 kilometers south of Milwaukee. When the officer asked him if he knew why he was wanted in Wisconsin, he said he had no idea. Then, he claimed he was someone else when it looked like he was about to be apprehended. In the end, he was arrested for marijuana possession, for having an open container of alcohol in the car, and for providing false identification to a law enforcement officer. Theodore Edgecombe was eventually extradited to Wisconsin and charged with reckless first-degree homicide with a dangerous weapon. As a Class B felony, a conviction on this charge alone could put him behind bars for up to 6 decades. That said, the state also charged him with 1 misdemeanor count and 1 felony count of bail jumping, since he was on probation for the previous offenses when he fled the state. However, he pleaded not guilty to reckless homicide with a dangerous weapon charge on the grounds that Jason Clearman was the aggressor, and that he feared for his life and that he had acted in self-defense. This was just a few months after Kyle Rittenhouse claimed self-defense after killing 2 people and wounding a third during a protest in nearby Kenosha, Wisconsin. Under Wisconsin law, Mr.
Shout out
Edgecombe's
Kyle
attorneys had to
Rittenhouse.
prove that he thought he was in imminent danger when he pulled the trigger. However, the self-defense standard would be even higher if the prosecution could show that the defendant provoked the confrontation, or that he didn't do everything he could have to get out of the situation before using deadly force. Another point of contention between the two sides was whether Jason Clearman used racial slurs against Theodore Edgecombe. This would be a tough sell for the defense on a number of levels. First, because Jason Clearman's wife was a woman of color. In addition, the prosecution would call witnesses who would undoubtedly paint the victim as a selfless, colorblind man who dedicated his life.
This guy literally helped immigrants get into America. I'm pretty sure he's not calling
helping people of
dropping an
races
N-word.
and nationalities. As the trial date drew near, Judge David Borowski had to dismiss the original jurors because some of their identities were compromised during live streams of the early proceedings. Nonetheless, 12 new jurors and 2 alternates were eventually selected. Then, on the morning of Friday, April 8, 2022, the trial finally got underway in Milwaukee County Court after a short COVID-related
How's my life been
delay.
going? I mean, I'm alive, so there's that. You know what I mean?
Do you see my whole hand? Or do you only see the side that I'm showing to you?
Website is pursuing my dreams is hell easy. If you have a phone and it's earbuds, you can make music.
By the government,
Yeah, facts.
by the media, but
Keep
today,
at it, man. Don't ever stop.
This week, you will now hear the other side of the story.
Don't ever
There's been
stop.
many interviews by alleged victims in this case, but there's one victim who has not said one word yet, and that is Mr. Theodore Edgecombe. What the state has done is they've shown Jason Clearman in the best light. They've showed Miss Evangelina Clearman in the best light. They've also shown the Milwaukee Police Department in their actions in investigating this case in the best light. Well, members of the jury, here's the other side. Welcome to the dark side. Welcome to the side.
The dark side. And he's got a black client. I don't know about that one, buddy.
For over 25 years, where she sees her husband laying on the ground, never tries to save his life, never tries to apply pressure to stop any bleeding.
That's what I said originally, too.
She
Actually.
never administered CPR.
That's what I said, too.
One physical act whatsoever to try to save the man she claims and purports to love.
That's not up to her to do, though. That's... People react to shock in different ways, and clearly she was shocked. It's up to your client not to shoot him.
The evidence is going to show in this case bicycle along. He was not coming in direct, going the opposite direction of the Clearmans. He was riding his bike along. The Clearmans, just leaving from drinking at a bar, operate the vehicle. They're going down the street, and there's a vehicle that's parked. There's a vehicle that's parked, ladies and gentlemen, that has their right turn signal on, waiting for a parking spot. Well, the Clearmans grew impatient. So what did they do? They come over, and they go into the opposite lane of traffic, coming into direct contact with another vehicle. Then they swerve over, and that's when they struck Mr. Edgecombe. Mr. Edgecombe lands on top of another vehicle. And that's not the end of it. Pardon my language, members of the jury. They did not say, however, quote, as the state has argued, what the fuck? That's not what they said. The evidence is going to show in this case that the Clearmans, well, specifically Jason Clearman, yelled out, "Get the fuck out the road, nigger."
Whoa.
You're gonna learn Miss Clearman yelling out the window as well. You're gonna learn him.
My man just dropping it.
Going for a jog, as the state alleges. He wasn't just going for it. You're gonna hear in evidence that Mr. Jason Clearman was chasing Mr. Edgecombe, yelling out more racial slurs. "I'm getting ready to kill you, nigger. I'm getting ready to kill you. I'm getting ready to kill you now." That's what the evidence is going to show in this case.
When Milwaukee
Yo,
Police
that's
Detective
wild
Armand
shit
took the
right
stand,
there. Alright, we're closing that. Yeah, I'm gonna bounce. We're gonna watch that a little bit later. I'll watch that later anyway. Yo, I'm gonna bounce, brother. I'll talk to you later, eh? Holy fuck. Yeah, I'll talk to you later. Talk to you later, Limbo. You stay out of trouble. Have a good day, man. Appreciate you. Peace, bud.